Hello everyone, a very good morning. I am Miss Aisha Siddiqui and I am from Arham College. I hope everyone is fit and healthy. You are taking all precautions from this virus, this deadly virus that has struck us very hard. And I don't know when the schools and colleges will come back to its normal life, but till then, yes, it's everything online. So this is the way of conveying knowledge and this is the way of spreading knowledge. So, and the way to receive knowledge is just to sit, open up the laptop or the phone and just watch the video. So it's a very easy way that you can do. So you don't need to get so much of trouble for this, right? It is just very easy. Just open and start watching. So I hope it's good for you all to do it in this way. I am Miss Aisha Siddiqui. Welcome back to Arham channel, Arham College videos, wherein I will be teaching you all the second year BA students General English, and we are on the fourth semester, chapter number 5, syntax. I've already done 2 to 3 classes on it, wherein I've explained what is syntax and its characteristics, why it is used, where it is used, how to build sentences with the help of syntax. Syntax is structuring and organizing sentences, how a sentence is used with all the words, the phrases, and the phrase structure rules are also explained in the second class. The third class was for the clauses and the basics of clauses with the main clause, the subordinate clause, and everything is explained in the previous class. For the ones who have not watched it, please go back and watch the clauses part because it is a continuation, and clauses second part will be continued now. A very important session, you can say. It's on parts of clauses. All right, the previous thing that we did was a full description of clauses, its requirements, its characteristics, its structuring, and everything. In this session, in this class, I will be doing parts of clauses in detail, and we will finish off with the topic of clauses with this. The next topic after this will be types of sentences. So we will directly jump off to the last part of the chapter, that is types of sentences. All right. So before jumping off to the last part, this is the second last part, and that is parts of clauses. Please, for the ones who have not watched the previous videos, go back to the channel, watch those videos, and then come back to this video, as it will not be understood if you watch it alone. All right, thank you so much. And let's start with the basic and the introduction to the parts of clauses. I'll just share my screen first. Okay, if you see clauses and their parts, I would first like to explain what is clauses before going to its parts directly. Okay, I'll just share my screen back here. Yes, so before starting with clauses and its parts, the clause is actually is a central unit of any language. All right, so just a minute, students. Okay, so clauses are the central unit of any language. I've done this before. I'm just revising it before we start with the parts of clauses. All right, a simple way of thinking about clause is to regard them as the unit of clause of a language. So it's one small unit of the whole language or the sentence, you can say. Okay, then here are some general examples of the kinds of clauses to convey. All right, somebody did something at a certain time, somebody did something to someone else, something was the case at a certain time, something happened for a certain reason, something has a certain property. Clauses are analyzed in terms of clause elements. What are these clause elements? They are the parts of clauses, which is understood by referring the parts of the message conveyed by the clause. So that's the parts of clauses. All right. So it can be a predicate verb, it can be a subject, it can be a direct object, an indirect object, then a subject predictive or an object predictive, then adverbial as well. Okay, so let's start with the subject predictive. Now, the subject predictive verb, the central part of the clause is the predictive verb, which specifies what kind of event or state we are talking about or writing about. All right, in the following clauses, the predicate verb is highlighted. All right, now predicate verb is something that specifies what kind it is. Okay, that gives you a little more information of what kind of verb it is. All right, the boys gathered in the street. So gathered became the predictive verb. The road has been blocked by a tree. Had been blocked. It is blocked as a verb. It's a predicate verb. Several accidents had occurred during the afternoon. So had occurred is the predicate verb. Notice that the predicate verb may consist of more than one word. All right, it cannot only be blocked. It has to be had been blocked. All right, and it's not only one word. Thus the term predicate verb. Now a normal verb is jumped, kicked. Okay, like these many verbs that gives you one word. But a predicate verb, the difference between a verb and a predicate verb is that means it cannot be one word, but it has few words. All right, it does not denote a very one kind or one word to it. It is a special subclass of verb, but it specifies the role and function of a part of clause. All right, now the next one is the subject. The subject of a clause identifies an important participant in the event or state described by the predicate verb. Depending on the verb, the subject identifies who does something, who or what has a certain property, who or what is a particular in a particular state, etc. The following clause is subject, the highlight. So the subject is highlighted. Now, what is the subject? It's the most important part of the sentence. All right, about whom it is going on. The main subject, suppose geography. Geography is your main subject. In it, you're doing agriculture here and that. So, all the other things, latitudes, longitudes, all of those topics, rocks. So all these things are done in the main subject. What is the main thing? So if I say agriculture is a part of geography, all right, so you will know that the main subject is geography. All right, agriculture is the subordinate. You can say the helping verb. All right, so the subject of a sentence is the main important participant of that event, the main participant, the main character, the main part. Depending on the verb, then there's a verb connected to it. We said the predicate verb also. Correct? Now, what is the subject? It identifies who does something. Who and what are the questions used to identify a subject. For example, boys gathered in the street. So the main subject of this sentence is boys. Who gathered? The boys gathered. All the boys gathered in the street. All the boys. Okay. How many or who? All the boys. Water has a higher density than oil. Now, water is the main subject. You're talking about water because you're describing water has high density. If you would say oil has high density, that means you're describing oil, and therefore oil becomes the main subject. But here you are describing water as the main subject. All right. To identify the subject, it often helps to formulate a question based on what general situation the clause is about. So mostly when you want to identify a subject, the main thing that you can do is you need to ask questions. All right, specifically who and what are the questions that you need to ask in order to get your answer for the main subject. Thus, the first clause above is about something gathering somewhere. Something gathering somewhere. So the boys gathered on the street. The street. All right. To find the subject, now it can be boys, it can be street. Both the things are little highlighted. So which one it can be? So if you ask the question who, you will get the answer boys. Who gathered somewhere? The boys gathered somewhere. So whenever you ask the question who, you will get the subject. All right. And the other part of the sentence gives you the functions of as the subject of the clause. Notice that the subject can consist of many words. Now all the boys, now not only one boy is the subject, all the boys are subject here. So therefore you come to know with this sentence, the second one, the fifth one here, that subject cannot be only one, subject also can be more words. All right, let's go to the third topic. The third parts of clause is the object, denoted as the letter a capital O. Before just jumping off to the object, if you see in your book, you also have a topic as subject and object on page number 88. So we will also read about subject and object there, and then we'll move ahead. All right. So let's first finish off the object over here. A clause may contain of two objects. In general terms, an object denotes sometime, someone or something which is affected by an action described by a verb. In the following clauses, the object is highlighted. Let's see the seventh one. We mixed the two liquids in a test glass. All right. The two liquids is the object here. We become the subject. The two liquids become the object. The increase in immigration indirectly affected the inflation process. The inflation process is the main object in the sentence. They placed the test tube in a steel container. They is the subject. Test tube is the object. To identify the object, we can ask the question in a general type, what? All right. Whenever we ask the question, what, we will get the answer as the object. All right. So let's see. We mixed two liquids in a test glass. Okay. What did we mix? If we ask the question, what did we mix? We will get the answer, the two liquids. And therefore, whenever we want to remove the object of the sentence, we will say what. Whenever we want to remove the subject, we use the word who here. All right. So here we'll use the mostly the question what. All right. The presence or absence of objects is determined by the verb. Thus, some words that are transitive verbs require the presence of an object, while others that are intransitive verbs do not. Now, in the verbs, there are few words that we said the two types of verbs, transitive and intransitive. These two verbs, one of them requires an object and the other does not even require an object. The transitive verb will always require an object. Okay, some verbs that are ditransitive verbs require two objects. Di means two. So you have two objects. You require two objects for that. In the following clause, the two objects are highlighted. Let's see the two objects here. The new law gave the government full control over the banks. The first object is the government. The government is the first object. And the indirect object, that is the second object, is called the indirect object. It's banks. The indirect object can also be in the form of a prepositional phrase, in which case the direct object precedes the indirect object. So the government making the first one, banks becoming the second one. All right, let's see the 11th example here given. She sent some documents to the professor. Please note that if there is only one object in a clause, the object is always direct object. When there are two clauses, there will be one direct and one indirect object. But whenever there is only one object in the sentence, you always have to remember that that is a direct object, unless the verb actually requires two objects. So when a verb is there, sent, okay, send, she sent. So sent is the verb, and this verb requires only one object. Therefore, in this case, we have, okay, in which case we have ellipses. Ellipses is where we require two objects. They often give to charity. That means one object giving charity and giving another object. All right. So I hope you understood the objective part of it as well. If you see, before going to the predicatives, I'll just pause here and see. If you see on page number 88, you have parts of clauses, subjects and objects. All right. So in this, if you see, the whole page giving examples is given for an subject and object one. And what is the difference between subject and object is also given over here. All right. Then there is transitive and intransitive verbs also explained on page number 90, if you see. And there is ditransitive also explained. So it is shown that when there is a ditransitive one, you need two objects, a direct and an indirect one. But whenever one object is used, that is always a direct object. All right. And also examples are given here. We also did it in our own form. All right. Let's move ahead to predictive. All right. And then after predicatives, we'll do the adverbials. And then we will finally finish off with your portion. I mean, not your portion, sorry, with the chapter. No, I'm really sorry. There's one more topic after this. That's types of sentences. And then we'll finish off with your chapter. All right. Let's do predicatives. Now, predicatives ascribe properties to the subject and object of the clause. The most typical verb that occurs with a predicative is be. But there are several other verbs that can create a similar link to the subject. Here are a few examples with the predicatives highlighted. Now, what are predicatives we saw? It can give you properties of a subject, also of an object together. And a typical verb occurs with a predicative. Mostly it's be. Okay. Bill is a mathematician. Now everything. Bill is the subject and a description is given about him. Subject and object all are together predictive. So it's just giving you a prediction. The results were somewhat surprising. Somewhat surprising. Several of the members in the control group seemed surprised. Surprised here can give you the verb of the clause, and therefore it can give you the predicatives also. Over time, the impact of discovery became more and more obvious. More and more obvious is your predicatives. These examples all involve subject predicatives. All right. So they are all subject predicatives. That means a subjective given, Bill is a mathematician. All right. And then there is a predicative. That is a subject predicative is given. That is predicatives which give you properties of the subject. So explanation about the subject is given. The result is the subject was surprising. So a little more information and exciting thing about the subject is explained here, and that is your predicative. All right. The following example illustrates cases where the predicative ascribes a property to the object. Everyone considers James a promising mathematician. All right. Now, promising mathematician. The research team all found the results somewhat surprising. Now, in the first example, James functions as the object. All right. And the predicative, a promising mathematician. Now, a property to Bill. All right, you can see a property to bill is given here. Similarly, in the second example, the results functions are the object. Okay, and somewhat surprising is giving you the property to the results. Predicatives that are linked to the object in this way are referred to as object predicatives. All right. So there is in predicatives, there are two parts. One is the subject predicative, giving you more information about the subject. That is known as the subject predicative. And the object predicative is giving you something more about the object. So that's a object predicative. All right. Now we'll go to the last part of the parts of clauses, that is adverbials. So if you see on your page number 92, you also have adverbials here. Now, if you see predicatives, it's just a word. Another word for this predicatives is also complements. Okay, complements. If you see on page number 91 of your textbook, parts of clauses, complements is actually predicatives and adverbials is what we're going to do. And if you see on page number 93, we already did this: subject predicatives and object predicatives. In your textbook, it is given as subject complements and object complements. So it's the same thing. Do not get confused, students. All right. Now let's go to adverbials. All right. Now what is adverbials? Adverbials perform a wide range of functions within a clause. Some adverbials specify circumstances that the company or event or a state. For example, an adverbial may specify when, where, why, how an event took place. When, where, how, and why and how. Let's see the following examples for adverbials. You'll understand more after giving the examples. Okay, after the war, the manufacture of arms was forbidden after the war. A sensible savings plan is preferable because of the financial advantages of saving over borrowing. Okay, so because, after the because, you have the adverbials. The nerve was divided with a pair of scissors. Oh my God. Other adverbials indicate how a clause is related to the previous one. Let's see how one clause can relate one part to the previous one. However, the government recovered 7 billion of the debt. Now, however is relating. Moreover, however, this is used for indicating a clause for the previous one. Now, a third group of adverbials provide comments or the content of clause. Example, with respect to the speaker's or the writer's attitude. It depends on the attitude of the speaker. Apparently, large groups are perceived as more threatening than smaller ones. So apparently, admittedly, so I admit that old critics did not question progress as such. Now there's a new category, one more category of adverbials. The following clause has three adverbials together. In general, however, the army would need more funds to purchase more and better weapons. Now here you see in general. What in general became the previous one that we read. Adverbials indicating clause the previous one. Then comes how, sorry, I'm so sorry, students. In general becomes your adverbials, the third group of adverbials that gives you a comment or a content. All right. So in general, apparently, admittedly, that becomes your third category of adverbial. Now, however, is your second category, which relates to the previous one. Okay. In general, however. Okay. And then the last one is it gives you some reason to it, like because, with what thing it is done. So here it gives you to purchase more better weapons. So this became your adverbials. All right, students. So with this, we have finished off with the parts of clauses as well. Parts of clauses is completed fully, and so we've almost completed half of the chapter, in fact more than half of the chapter, and only the last part of chapter 5, syntax, is left, and that will be Types of sentences: structural classification, complex sentence, affirmative, WH questions, question tags, yes and no questions, negative sentences, imperatives, okay, and much more. So this is one other topic, that is the last topic of your chapter 5 syntax, about the types of sentences, and with that last topic you will finish off with your chapter number 5. All right, so I hope this is clear. You all can take down your notes, whatever is required. You all can note down what websites I see, so that it's helpful for you all to later on get into your question and answers and all. After this, after the last class that I'll be taking on syntax, I will be doing chapter number 6. I will be starting with the introduction of chapter 6, that is semantics. Right? Thank you so much, students. Take care, have a nice day, and stay home, stay safe.